I think that those employees that are invested will buy in and say, okay, hey, I'm going to hold it down. I'm going to help. I'm going to do what I can do to cut cost and everything and create savings for the company. So
Yep.
it's just, I know it's a different thing. It's not really
No,
about minimum wage, but
I think it is. I think it
yeah,
absolutely, yeah. It's about wages, right?
yeah,
It's that time of year, right? We're in that time of year where year-end reviews, annual
yeah,
bonuses, holiday bonuses, and if it's a tough year, you're not getting those things.
yep.
And you really, as an employee, you got to make a decision. Like, am I okay with this, or am I gonna go take my talents elsewhere? Welcome back, folks. It's about your paycheck. This is a good one. We're talking about minimum wage today. And before that, like always, what's up, Walt? How you doing today, sir?
I am blessed and great, feeling good. It's almost Christmas time, getting these ornaments up on my tree.
Oh, nice. You
And,
put your tree up?
yeah,
Good.
it's
Good for
been
you.
up. It's
Good.
been up.
Oh,
It's been up.
okay.
I,
Oh, you
I
just didn't decorate.
I just didn't decorate it, so I'm waiting until the last minute here to decorate it and stuff
That's
and
cool. Yeah.
everything, man. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm doing the same thing. I'm still like last minute decorating and change. I put up some lights. I'm like, this don't look good. I had to take it down, do something like outside and whatnot.
Yeah,
But yeah, man, it's trying to get into the spirit. I love this time of year. Everybody's like a little happier, a little nice. It's a good time of year for social people.
yeah. Did I say Christmas or did I say the holidays? I said Christmas, right? I know that not everybody who's listening may not celebrate
Fair,
Christmas,
yeah. Happy
so
Hanukkah, by the way.
holidays, yeah.
Yep, holidays.
Hmm.
Happy Hanukkah. I don't know when is Kwanzaa this year. Oh, it's December 26th to January 1st. It looks like. Awesome. Yeah. Regardless of what Festivus for the rest of us, all that stuff. It's an all-inclusive show. Whatever your holiday it looks like. Hope you have a good one. All right. Anywho, folks, today's show is minimum wage. Controversial topics, right? We in our read through last night. We were just the energy was like getting there. I was like, oh man, I hope I have this energy tomorrow when we record.
Yeah, man.
And as we get into it, a little quick definition. I got curious this morning at the last minute. Wait, what was minimum wage even created, right? And it was created after the Great Depression to protect workers from exploitation by employers. It was also intended to stabilize the economy after the Great Depression and create a minimum standard of living. Yeah, yes, which is questionable because as we look at some of these minimum wage rates, you're gonna be like, I don't know if that's a standard of living that I want to be a part of. In 1938, when they started at 25 cents per hour. That was the minimum.
So think about that. 1938, and you may still have some folks who may still be around and kicking from that time. Not many, but there might be a few people
that can, yeah.
And for it to only be, you're almost talking about almost a century later, almost 100 years, because it's 14 years away from being a century, right?
Yeah.
Like
75 years later.
The federal minimum wage is only $7.25. Like,
yeah. It's some of the facts that you put up there. It's the federal minimum wage is 40% lower than it was in 1970 if you make all the adjustments for inflation and all that stuff, which is great, right? Like, how can it be lower? What are we doing, folks? And this is why this conversation is so crazy, because in 23, wages and salaries increased 1.2% and benefit costs increased 0.9%. Cost of livings are designed to offset inflation, but here's the thing: companies are not required to give you cost of living adjustments. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. This episode is presented by TimeTrack Go, the simply better employee time clock software that is going to make your life easier. In addition to the unique graphical employee time card that helps you quickly identify and fix mistakes, TimeTrack Go is excited to announce it's now compatible with QuickBooks Desktop, providing effortless data transfer and reduced errors. TimeTrack Go will not only save you time and money each week, but the easy to understand user interface and the ability to turn an ordinary tablet into an employee time clock will get you and your team up and going in just minutes. Find out what a simply better solution can do for your business. To learn more and sign up for your 14-day free trial, go to www.timetrackgo.com. That's TimeTrack go.com or call 321-9922. Let's go. Yep.
It's just as long see, and that's where that's where they take advantage of the minimum wage. Like, we're
Yeah.
paying minimum wage.
Yep.
When nobody said anything, we have to keep it, right? It's not a law. Now,
Yeah.
if you're in a union though, and this is why
Yes.
unions were so powerful and can be,
Yes.
they may require a certain increase to keep up with inflation and cost of living. That's why those are important.
Yeah. See, so it's up to the employer to include that into.
Yes,
I think that as employees, because this is it's about your paycheck,
that's right.
you have every right, even if you're not in a union, to ask,
Yes.
hey, is COLA considered in these increases? And give your employer an opportunity to be like, oh no, but we'll think about it, or oh no, like, well, we don't do that here. Let's just to clarify that, or see if they have a comp department, a compensation
Yep.
department, just
Yep.
ask what they're doing their research on when it comes to the increase part.
Yeah, and also do it yourself, right?
Yeah.
Go on to these websites, what PayScale, salary.com. And even if you have to do a free trial of the membership, whatever, invest in yourself, go dig in, and that allows you to gauge where your salary should be based on your specifics, right? Based on your company size, where you are, what your talents are, what your education is, and you can see what you should be getting paid, right?
So yeah, man. So I have a question here on this next stat that you see here from Forbes. According to Forbes, the average annual salary in the U.S. this year was a little over $59,000, which averages out to a little over $28 an hour, $28.34. So does that seem real, or does that seem like a little overstated because of high earners?
Of course, it's going to be skewed by higher and low, right? The averages. Yeah, exactly. And that's an average, right? Because now, okay, let's jump to the contrast of this. And so we're saying what the average salary is 58K, right? 59.
Yeah.
Let's say 60.
Yeah.
Right. But the 5 states with the lowest minimum wage is Georgia, Wyoming, Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And Georgia and Wyoming, which is really surprising, $5.15 an hour.
That's like some tip
That's
employees type of thing.
Yes. Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi follow the federal government, which is what, $7.25 we say?
Still, yep.
So these are really low wages. And like the rule of thumb, folks, if you ever and this is something that you learn in the profession, if you double the hourly wage, double it, that amount is like for the annual. So if you're making $5.15 an hour, I can guess really quick that you probably make about $12,000 a year, right? Trying to pull up my
it's
Excel.
$10,700.
Thank you.
Dollars.
See that little quick trick, right? If you take the hourly rate, double it, add the zeros, that's the annual of that hourly rate. Who's living? How in the world? Now let's jump back to the stat. Average Americans making 60 grand, but these 5 low states, they're making 10 grand.
Yeah. And even with the high states, the top 5 states.
So now let's go to the top 5. Yep.
Washington, California, Massachusetts, New York, and Colorado. They're all over either $13 or more, up to $15.74. So if you take that $15.74, which is in the state of Washington, and
double
you can do that method that Brian said, or you can multiply it by 2080.
2,080 hours is a full-time equivalent for us, folks. If you work 40 hours a week, 2,080 hours is how many hours you should be working in a year without overtime.
The highest state, which is Washington, that 1574 equates to a little almost $32,739.20. In comparison, you think about
we're still not there.
That's still $30,000 short.
Yes, of the average.
From the average.
So let's break it down into buckets, right? So we got this for you, folks. So let's see here. What makes sense? So I'm gonna just run through it. 8% of Americans make under 15 grand a year. 7.5% make between 15 and 25. 7% closer to 8% make between 25 and 35. 10%, now we start growing here. 10% make between 35 and 50. 16% make between 50 and 75. Ooh, then we drop. Now it gets tricky when you get more, right? 12% make between 75 and 100, basically. 16% make between 100,000 and 150. Now drop again. 9% only make between 150 and 200, and 11% make between 200 and over.
So
if you,
if I take those percentages, and so I did the first 5, right? And so I included the one that included the average, that 50,000 to 74. 75,000, 74,999, and that's actually 50.1% of Americans. So half of Americans fall either below
between
75,000
and 75.
Yes.
Half of Americans make below between 0 and 75. The other half are 75 and up. Yes. 75K a year and up. So that splits us in half, right? And and again, the average is 60. But to Walt's point, we get skewed. And that's the problem with averages and statistics, right? You don't know what numbers play in. And these are the numbers that play in because there's a smaller percentage, right? So if we go high earner, 100K to 200 or over 200, we're only at 20-30% of Americans.
Yep.
If you go 150 and up, you're only at 20%.
20%, yeah.
If you go 200 and up, you're only at 11%. 12% of Americans make 200K and more. So those 12% are really skewing the numbers, right? They make it look higher than it is, really.
So another example of that, right? Say you have 10 people in a room, right? Each person there makes $10 an hour, except for one person who makes that 100. That 100 is going to skew, like to using Brian's word, is going to throw off the average, right?
Yeah, because averages, it's taking the whole and dividing it by how many people, right?
Yes.
So if it's the 10 people and 9 of them make $10 an hour, that's 90, right? And then one of them makes 100, right? That makes 190, but you have to divide it by the 10 people. It makes it look like the average is $19 an hour.
See how that one person
makes the average look double. It makes it look like it's double because 9 of those people are making $10 an hour. But the one person throws it. So that's the problem with averages. Right. Yes. And that's the problem with averages in any math. You got to look at the details, right? That's why I don't like statistics and all that. I'm like, I want to see the data behind that.
Yes.
So again, folks, it's just we got to be mindful of that, and then how this plays in to our inflation rates. And this is why we're in a bad situation right now, because inflation is shooting up. The minimum wage is not catching up to that. We're not adjusting in a way that can compensate for what cost of living, the COLA, right?
Oh, so, and some of the things that go into COLA are like housing, healthcare, education.
Gosh.
All those things, they have to factor in all those things. Lots of people think, cost of living, that's just my housing stuff. No, you can actually you can actually put, hey, how much is groceries here? So many different things that go into cost of living in a city. So if you're thinking about relocating, utilities, you're thinking about, and there's helpful sites out there, and everything. One of the resources that we have here is a living wage calculator. So you can, and we'll include that in the show notes.
Yep.
But you can actually type in and see, okay, I put in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and compare it to Miami, Florida, and see what the cost of living is, right? So if you're thinking about relocating, that's something to consider.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because when I was moving from New York to Florida, I did that. And the way the site, I don't remember the site, but it's probably one of these, you can find it. But it did just that. It told me, all right, what do you make in New York? And then it told me what I would need to make in Florida to have the same standard of living. So those are helpful, because people think, especially, look, if you're going from New York to Wyoming, you're going from an average of $15 to an average of $5, not an average, a minimum wage of $15 to a minimum wage of
Hmm.
$5, the cost
Yeah.
of living is going to be lower, right?
Yes.
And so you can't, so folks, there's a huge disconnect there because
Yeah.
especially moving from New York to the north to the south, period,
Yeah.
or out of these high earning states, high to not. So think about that, and it's always, oh, you're not going to make as much. Oh my God, they're going to cut your in half, and yeah,
Hmm.
but that might be fine if my housing is half and my
Yeah.
cost of food is half. So that's
Yeah.
fine. If my expenses are going to get cut in half, then
Hmm.
hey, I might be able to deal with a lower wage. So you got to factor those things
Yeah.
in, right? When we're moving around the country. Now, what really messed us up is the pandemic
Hmm.
because then it opened up this remote world and folks were taking those high earning salaries and going to Wyoming, Georgia,
Hmm.
Florida, and like really skewing the cost of living.
Hmm.
I hope it starts to reset itself at some point
Yes.
because not a lot of people are even work from home. There's only like 20% of the population that actually work from home.
Yes.
So that small population, here we go again with the numbers and the averages and the things skewing
Yep.
things,
Yep.
right? Is
Yep.
throwing off the markets. So
Yeah.
there's things that we have to be mindful of as we think about our minimum wage, as we think about our rate of the money we make and what we're doing with that money. Um,
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to make a point about,
yeah,
because I know we're talking about minimum wage here, and I know I mentioned tipped employees.
sure. Yeah.
That could be valet, that could be
Your
restaurant
waiters,
workers.
yeah,
Yeah, you know what I'm
waiters,
saying? Like,
waitresses, yep,
so the in some states, the tipped minimum wage in 2023 is $2.13.
yeah,
So that
yeah,
means that's your hourly rate, and then
yep,
plus you get tips.
yep.
Now, what I want you to realize is that every state is different. So there are some states whose tip wages, like for instance,
Hmm.
Maine's tip wage minimum wage is
Oh
$6.90,
wow,
right?
nice.
But you have to combine the tips with that tipped minimum wage to make it either the state or
Or the
to make
federal,
it match the federal minimum
yeah,
wage, right? So it
correct,
has to add up to that at the end of the day. So I just wanted
right.
to put that out there. So
That
if you're in
and
the
yeah,
industry,
yep.
yeah.
Do the math. No, that's exactly what I was going to say. If you're that employee, make sure
Hmm.
you understand how that works and you're
Hmm.
constantly checking your employers to make
Yep.
sure the math works.
Hmm.
Know the math. Know the math. Do the math. And I think, yeah, that's a big thing for us. And that's something that we want to impart on all of you guys listening. As an
Hmm.
employee, do the math.
Hmm.
Check your work. Check your wages. Check your paycheck. So,
Yes, and also check your laws
oh yeah, heck
around in your
yes,
state,
yes,
because you may
yes.
move from one state to another. Say, hey, I live in Florida, and Florida has a tipped minimum wage, right? But then you're gonna say, let's say you move to Washington or California, those states don't allow a tip minimum wage,
What
right?
did they default to the regular minimum wage?
Yes, they
Oh,
default to at least the regular state minimum wage
that's a good look.
in addition to their
To
collected
tips.
tips. Yeah.
That's a good look. So that's like how Tabitha Brown said, right? She was
Hmm.
giving her employees minimum wage, regardless of the tipped minimum wage.
Hmm.
She so they and that makes sense because California is, and we bring up California. If you ever wonder why we talk about California so much, California is the number one state with the most employees in the country,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Big, it's a big state. They have the most employees. So that, and which makes sense to us now as payroll professionals because they're very employee centric. If you ever want to go
Hmm.
live somewhere and be protected as an employee, California is
Hmm.
the number one choice because they're
Yeah.
very employee centric, meaning their state is really protecting and advocating for employees.
And yes, and so every state is different. So please go out
Look at
there, do your
yes.
research, know where you fall into. So there are states that have two different tipped categories, right? So Minnesota, for instance, they have one category. So if your business has a gross revenue of $500,000 or more,
Oh wow.
that tip wage, that
Has
minimum
to be
tip
more.
is $10.59. If it's under that, it drops down to
Interesting.
$8.63.
Very
See, so
interesting.
you have to know that. And
Mm.
see, as an employee, I wonder if there's some regulation or some type of legal laws about that in the state of Minnesota that is required for them to put that out. the information out for employees to review or whatever. Because
It's a
I
good
don't know
one.
how many employees would
It's a
review
good
that.
one.
Like,
Yeah,
how many employees know how much revenue or
the
gross
company
revenue
makes.
their company makes?
Yep. That's a good one. That's a really good one because now they have to disclose it. Because
Yeah,
if you're keeping me at a lower minimum wage, but I feel like, wait, this place does great, we need to see the math. So
yeah,
that's what a great call out.
yeah.
What a great call out. And folks, at one point, we are going to start a state by state series of breaking down what the rules are in each state. We're
Hmm.
prepping. We're going to get there. Don't worry. If you ever have any questions, reach out to us. We'll fast forward to you.
So if
But
you already have the details for your state and you're in the
oh, heck
payroll
yeah.
HR, we'll just have you
Come
on the
on,
show.
just
Come on.
come on the show. Yeah, for real. And yeah, so this is so again, I really I got stuck on that what you said. Go look up your state. All those rules and regulations are there. It
Yeah,
might be a little legalese, like to get
yes,
through it, but
but it's
Google
important.
is a good friend. You can use Google as, hey, what does this mean? What does that mean? And break it down.
Google's excellent, especially
Yep.
with this generative AI.
AI. Yep.
They can they can put it right there at the top and it'll tell you information for your state just like that in a few seconds. You have so much information accessible
Yep.
and that's true and that you can lean on.
Yep.
Just like Brian said, Google as a major tool for you to use.
Yep. Just verify the sources. Make sure it's
Yeah.
coming from the state sources, the
Mhm.
state websites and stuff like that. Yeah, man. Again, this subject is such a important subject because
Yeah.
the consider. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
just looking through the notes, making sure we're covering all the stuff. We have so much to share
Mhm.
and yep, man, we're shooting through this. Awesome. Okay, yeah, this is amazing. And then look as we'll come back and forth, but and then to end it off, and we're not done yet, but to round it all out, even better said, is do we need overhaul or does it stay the same? Right?
And do we improve it? So when you say overhaul, you mean just change the entire thing and
New rules.
new rules
New
first,
rules.
or do we maintain and improve what we currently have?
You mentioned something the other day. Should minimum wage be based on the industry you're in?
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
what though that tip way, hey, if we're making this much, it needs to be that.
yes.
I'm sure there's a million different ideas on how minimum wage should be applied,
So
you
for
know?
me, I'm gonna tell you how I feel, and this is just a thought. Now, I haven't sat down and thought about all the details out and this and that, but
Hmm.
I feel it's similar to what some of those like Minnesota does or Connecticut. I should say because Connecticut has it to where if you're a bartender who receives tips, you have a certain wage, and if you work at a hotel or restaurant, you
Oh
receive
wow.
a certain wage.
Interesting.
So I feel like it should be something like that. But I still feel like the federal minimum wage should go up to 15, 20
Yeah,
bucks, and
absolutely.
that should be the standard. And then from that point, you base it off of industry. If I'm in payroll and like I said, I just went to college, I just graduated or just got into payroll, my base salary should be, I'm just going to put a number out there, 48, 49, $50,000 or whatever. Boom. And it should at least be no less than that federal minimum wage, which I think should be like 20 bucks. But that's just my opinion. So
Yeah,
I am leaning towards the overhaul. That's how I feel, but I don't know about you.
I don't know what the right way to say where it puts me,
Hmm.
but I think the math has to be done. I think because there's so much impact to wages as opposed to economy, right? People spend more, they make more, they spend more, things like that. And then we think about some jobs don't make enough, right?
Yeah,
Our teachers,
yeah.
I don't understand. Like, why is it still right?
They have such an important role
Yes,
in our
yes,
children's lives
yep,
and in our lives. They
yep,
do so much. I'm talking
yep,
about from pre-K
yep.
through 12,
Through 12.
not
Yeah,
just elementary through
that's right.
12. Like I'm talking about pre-K. Like those teachers have such a impact, especially the great ones, man. Just teachers who have been at their child care or daycare for years, for
20,
like
30, 40 years.
decades. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? And
It's
like,
generational.
yeah,
We see it
generational,
generational. Yeah.
and it's what they're passionate about, and they love
Hmm.
doing it, but they're only making $15 an
It's a
hour, and they've
labor of
been there.
love.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's
Like
a labor of love.
I feel like the military, I feel like the teachers and those industries, man, I feel like they should be earning so much more. than what they
Yeah,
are.
agreed. Agree. So I guess again, back to your point, if you all right, you think it should be 20, but what if
Mhm.
that really messes up the economy? What if 20 really has a ripple
It
effect
could.
that's
It
an
could.
adverse so that's
It
why I
could.
say I think it should be mathematically, the math should be thought out
See,
and
but think
whatever
about it,
that
man.
looks like.
Doing these like, and I we can go down a rabbit hole
Of
here. So this is
course,
this is
of
the last thing
course.
I'm gonna say. But like we talked about this the other day. The groceries that cost me
Yes.
$50 in 2022 cost me damn near $80
Hmm.
in this year. It
Year
cost
later.
like so man, so the same groceries are $30 more.
So
That's
that's what's
almost
over a 50% increase.
that's over. So that's
Yeah.
almost like it's closer to 60%. Think about that. If my groceries, my cost of living has gone up 60%.
Yeah. And you know what? It makes me think about we were talking about all the cartoons we see now because our algorithms on our socials are very different. We get a lot of HR stuff, a lot of money
Yeah.
talk, a lot of things. So now, and it's cool because now there's these little cartoons about, and there's what we were talking about. It was like an interview,
Mhm.
and one of the interviewer, right, the
Yep.
employer, the hiring manager was like, "Hey, your resume says you could speak Spanish."
Hmm.
And the candidate was like, "Yeah, I can speak Spanish, but how much are you paying extra for that skill?" And the cartoon goes on to be very funny from there. But that there's another one that's, "Oh, you're only giving me 3%, but you just said I was an amazing employee. Shouldn't I be above expectations and not
Yeah.
meeting expectations?" And then he walks away and is like, "You know what? I'm gonna lower my work ethic because
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I'm you know what I
Yeah.
mean?" And like these is hilarious conversations, but it's
Hmm.
true,
It's
right?
true, right?
And we've been saying it on the show. You have to invest in yourself. You have to track your performance yourself.
So let me ask you. This might be unpopular, but do you feel like there has to be some sort of balance, right? Because say the employer is going through tough times
Hmm.
and they're not able to do like they're historically they've
Hmm.
done
Hmm.
right by
Hmm.
their employees and say, hey, but then it catches up and they're just like, hey, we have to back up from that and we have to set these standards in place and do this and do that.
It's
Should
fair.
the should we as employees be more understanding of that? Or should we still be like, hey, I still want what I deserve. I still want what I think I'm worth.
That's
Or
a
should
good.
there be a balance?
It's a good one, but it's
Yeah.
not easy. That's not an easy question because the
Hmm.
company would have to had established a tradition of being transparent and your employees trust you, right? So when that day comes and you're like, "Hey guys, we're really short because look at the math. Look at our numbers. Our sales didn't hit. We're not getting the sales that we're not getting the revenue that we normally get. So guess what?
Hmm.
This year is going to be tough." Right? That's about trust because if you say that to me and then the CEO pulls up with a brand new car the next
A
day,
Bugatti,
a new year, right on New Year's, hmm, what happened
Maserati.
there? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that's what throws it. It's got to be about trust. So you're right. Yeah, sure. It could be okay if your people trust you it to be okay. You know what
Like one thing that I think you and I have discussed is like, I think it's actually you were one of the first people I heard say this. If you take care of your people, they'll take care of you. So
yes.
to your point, if you are the employer that's transparent and you are forthright with your employees and you're honest with them and you're
Hmm.
just like, hey, this is a rough patch we're going to go through. So as we're going through it, we need you to be understanding and everything. I feel like the employees that are really invested because they're going to have some employees that are just like, okay, I'm out no
I'm
matter
out.
what,
Yeah, I'm out of here.
no
I don't
matter
care
what.
what they say. Yep.
Yep. And I think that those employees that are invested will buy in and say, okay, hey, I'm going to hold it down. I'm going to help. I'm going to do what I can do to cut cost and everything and create savings for the company. So
Yep.
it's just, I know it's a different thing. It's not really
No,
about minimum
it's.
wage, but
I think it is. I think it
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's about wages,
yeah,
right? It's that time of year, right? We're in that time of year where year-end reviews, annual
yeah.
bonuses, holiday bonuses, and if it's a tough year, you're not getting those things.
Yep.
And you really, as an employee, you got to make a decision. Like, am I okay with this, or
Hmm.
am I gonna go take my talents elsewhere?
So
right?
you're absolutely. I love that you said that because January and February are the top months where people apply for new jobs.
That's yeah. Yep. Yep. There you go. That there you go. And that could be for other reasons too. That could be or skewed by the new year, new me
Mm-hmm.
deal. Oh, new year, new me. I'm out of here. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
in, right? That gets skewed. But and then what factors back into this again, 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. But
So most of
50%
you
of
that are listening,
Americans,
yeah.
yeah, well, us really. Shoot, I'm not out of that bucket yet. But if we look at it, if we do the math right with the numbers, 50% of us make
Between 0
over
and
50K, but 70% of us are still living paycheck to paycheck. And again, like we've talked about with other folks, high earners, it doesn't exclude high earners.
yeah,
It does not exclude high earners, right? There are millionaires out there living paycheck to paycheck
absolutely.
beyond their means. Oh, another great little quote that I like is a gentleman online that talks about it. He says, "It's all about how we feel about money, right?
Yeah.
And poor people use money to pay bills, and
Oh
that's
yes.
the purpose, right?
Yeah.
Middle class use money to get good credit and live beyond their means.
Mm-hmm.
The rich see money as a way to make more money.
Yep.
How do I, oh, I got some money. How do I make this money make more money?
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we say, proponent that Damon Johns is really pushing is that 1, 2, 3. That first
Mm-hmm.
dollar pays your bills. The second dollar invests. And the third dollar, you can buy what you want. But
Mm-hmm.
most of us have it flipped. And
Yep.
honestly, no investment is in there. It's what we want, and then we pay bills, and then we don't invest. And the purpose of it is for that middle tier to grow exponentially and pour over into the other tiers.
Mm-hmm.
We invest money. If we look at it like that, well, what's the other thing we say? The wealthy are thinking generations down. They're planning
Yes.
generations
Yes.
down the line. What are we doing? We're planning for Friday night.
Yes. So yes, no matter what background you are, no matter what your beliefs are, like because there could be an argument, oh, you come from this family, you come from that family. Those families had somebody had to start for that family to get
That's
in
right.
that position. Somebody
That's
had
right.
to like have a vision for them to say, hey, I don't want my family to remain in this spot. And so I'm
Yep.
going to educate myself and then I'm going to pass that down through the generations of my
That's right.
family or whoever I consider family. I'm going to pass that information down so we all can be wealthy. And
And
I
right.
think a lot of times, no matter what background you're from, like a lot of times you're focusing on yourself,
Yeah.
how
You
you
ain't
can
thinking about
build
your
yourself.
grandkids and great grandkids. No.
You're not even thinking about your siblings sometimes. You're like, hey,
For real.
I love you, but I gotta take care of me. I
Yep.
gotta look out for me. And that's the mindset that a lot of us have. It's that kind of like survivalist mindset.
Hmm.
And so we just like, hey, instead of us coming together and getting this money,
Making sacrifices for the next generation. And we're not thinking about that.
bro,
We're trying again.
I remember growing up, my brother and me, we used to sometimes just pick at people that had a bunch of family members living in one house together.
Hmm.
So it's a 2, 3 bedroom house and there's 10, 12 people living there.
Hmm.
But I remember this one family, I think they were Guatemalan and everybody had moved in there and they were all just saving their money.
That's
Everybody was
right.
had different jobs and saving their
That's
money. They're
right.
like, hey,
That's right.
it's tight, but
Yep.
we're gonna do this. And then next thing you know, they came up with their own business.
There you go. That's right.
And then their family's like, hey, we had this business and we saved up this money for a few years. Everybody sacrificed and it
Hmm.
was uncomfortable and it was
Hmm.
hard and it was this and
Hmm.
that. But
Hmm.
man, like
Hmm.
3, 4 years later, they were balling out of
That's
control.
right. That's right. That's why America's such a great place to be, right?
Mhm.
Capitalism, you get out of it what you put into it.
Yep.
Pick yourself up by the bootstraps and you do what you got to do. Capitalism. People frown upon it. Hey, they look at America, but you can come here and make a difference. Are you willing to make the sacrifices? We
Mhm.
talked about that so there's another, we went down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
in our walkthrough and our read through for this show. And one of the things that we saw was like how the correlation of investing, who invests how much, and
Yes.
what that looks like. and it's pretty much what you probably think it's gonna be. On our read, and this is from the Pew Research Center, finds that 88% of those in households earning $100,000 or more own stocks, compared to 19% of those households earning less than $35,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
right? Families headed by white adults are more likely than those headed by Black or Hispanic adults to be invested in the stock market. A majority of 61% of non-Hispanic white households own some stock, compared with 31% of non-Hispanic Black and 28% of Hispanic households.
So
So they
yeah,
double, right? I'm sorry.
yes,
Go ahead.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. No, go ahead.
Yeah, they double their input into the investments. Now, one of the things that Walt brought up was like, well, somebody's making less than 35. How can you invest? You sacrifice. That's how you
Yes,
invest. You
yes,
take
sir.
that 1, 2, 3 method. You take that first dollar and you take care of your bills. You take the second dollar and you invest.
Yes,
You sacrifice what you want for the better. What's that other one? Where we're sacrificing tomorrow's promises for today's
yes,
preferences.
yes, bro. Because think about it. You're making your state's minimum wage, or you're making under 35,000 or whatever, and you're like, hey, I work hard, I'm gonna play hard. It's okay to play hard,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to try to find where areas where you can sacrifice. I remember this one guy on TikTok, he was talking about, hey, these people in his family, that all they were thinking about was like, hey, I'm gonna have a good time, I'm gonna party
Yep.
this weekend, I'm gonna
Yep.
go out, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, hey, you know what, let me tone it down, let me put some money aside for this. Like, even if you invest money in yourself, right? By doing that, you put some money
Absolutely.
aside.
Yep.
Put it into
Yep.
an account that you can't touch, that you don't have a
Yep.
card for,
Yep.
that you would have to literally go to the bank to
Yep. Oh, and the
access.
passbook. Remember the passbook
Yes,
accounts?
yes, yes, yes. Do
Yep.
something like that you can hold aside for the future. You don't necessarily need to buy that Gucci bag that you
Oh
want.
no.
You may
Oh
already
no.
have a couple of Gucci bags in your closet, or some Fendi or whatever it is, right? Or some Birkin bag or whatever you have. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be. We as people need to be more mindful, and to get out of this always in a consumer mindset. That's the thing. We're always in a
Yes.
consumer
Yep.
mindset.
Yep.
Always want to buy. Oh, I
Need
need a
that
new wardrobe.
thrill. Yep.
Yeah, I need a new wardrobe.
Oh,
Like, no,
my gotta update my drip.
yeah, hmm
And
no,
that's fine
hmm
if you're putting that second dollar in investments,
yeah,
right? Because you
hmm
can put some money to what you want.
yeah,
Again, it's
absolutely,
all about what you're willing to sacrifice to get to tomorrow. Yeah, man.
yeah.
Shoot. What else? What else? Is there some good stuff?
So I think, man, like, as far as like the key points of this, what would you say? So I would say, for me, some of the key points of the minimum wage is to educate yourself, first of all.
Absolutely.
Educate yourself,
Do the
know what your
math.
rights are, do the
Yep.
math, figure out if you're about to make a move, do some comparisons, do some research. There's
Yep.
already some sites that all you have to do is put in the zip code. Like, I'm moving from this zip code to that zip code,
Yeah. And
and
it'll
it does
help you
all
out.
this stuff for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's up to date, right? There's sites
Yes.
that you can do that
Yes.
on. Do the research, do
Yep.
the math,
Yep.
and figure out what is best for you, right?
Yeah.
And we encourage you as listeners to engage in the conversations with your employer and
Yep.
to stay informed, right? Like, how many of us go to work and our HR departments, our finance departments, our employer in general will update something from a policy standpoint. We're just like, okay, all right, and we don't
Oh
even read it. We
gosh.
just
Yep.
sign
That's right.
the handbook
What
acknowledgement.
what was that stat you found? Like 50 or 60% of employees actively ignore reading
Yeah,
the handbook.
yes.
And that, folks, there is something in that handbook that's worthy. I'm telling you. Okay.
hmm hmm
Take the time. Holiday pay. We're still in holiday season. We keep talking about this. Understand what you're eligible for. You may not be eligible for holiday pay depending on how that week works for you, right?
hmm
It may be hey, and the rule that I point out a lot is if you worked the day before and the day after or something like that, that they have, it could be easy as part-time people don't get it, full-time people do
Yeah.
get it.
Yep.
Are you a temporary worker and not a full-time? You may work full-time hours and not be a full-time worker. What was that? We have a colleague that used the phrase, gosh, freelance. I wrote it down, but I forgot what it was. It's
hmm
something with freelance and temporary it's like a full freelance permalance. I found it.
Permalance. Yes.
Permalance. It's
yes. Yes.
permalance. He's a
hmm
freelancer, but he's working full-time hours.
hmm
But he doesn't get any of the benefits. So that's a very on the fence gray area, and they could be very legal depending on the situation. But guess what? You don't know if you don't research, do the research, do the math, figure out what your compliance, what rules, like your benefits in that state is your employer being compliant? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
As we near the end of this episode, we like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to you for listening. Before we sign off, here are a couple of quick things. Don't forget to follow It's About Payroll on LinkedIn and It's About Your Paycheck on Facebook and TikTok. We love engaging with our audience, and you'll be able to receive exclusive updates and behind the scenes content. Thank you for being a part of our payroll community, and thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep going. So yeah, I totally agree, man. And your age, whether you're young and you're just getting into the workforce,
that's right.
Or you've been in the workforce and you're heading towards retirement, you should still educate yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So think about it, because the ages between 16 and 19, your average hourly rate wage for those people in that age bracket is like $15 an hour.
It makes sense. Yep.
And then you go up a few years, 20 to 24, 18. And then there's a big jump between the ages of 25 to 34. You go from $18 an hour to an average of $25
That's
an
a
hour.
good one. I like that. See, and that makes sense because you're at expert level at that point. If you've done it at 25, you are a subject matter expert in your field. If you graduated college at 22 and you get right into your discipline, you've had now 3 years of discipline in that. You need 1 to 3 years to become an expert in something. So now 25 to 30, that makes sense.
But looking at the same list, there seems to be like a point at an age where you get when you hit a
plateau.
You plateau, yes. Yeah,
absolutely.
You plateau, and that's between the ages of 35 to 64.
Oof. Yep.
So the average hourly wage is about the same at $30 an hour. And then when you get 65 and older, it drops down actually.
That's right.
To 26.
Of course. Yeah. Because now you're retiring and you may lose some of that. If you don't save properly, if you don't invest properly, you're going to go down.
So think about it. I love what you said, and I know we're running out on time here. Between the age, like think about it. When you hit 35, that's probably when if you started early, or if say you waited to get married, that's around the time. If you're professional, hey, okay, I'm ready to settle down, have a kid, and this and that. And think about that. So if your earnings stay the same between the ages, around the same average earnings between 35 and 64, it's important for you to do the research and understand and really figure out what's going on, because that plateau happens. You're just like, okay, hey, I really need to figure out my future.
Yep. Exactly.
You and I are right in that area.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that between 35 to 64, we're right in there. You know what I'm saying?
We got to make it happen for ourselves at this point.
We have to make it happen for ourselves, because there might be a plateau.
Oh yeah.
There might be a plateau where as employees, this is employees, right? As employees, you get to that point, you're just like, okay, hey, I'm making this, I'm going to stay at this job for 15, 20 years and then invest in 401k and retire after this. Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yep. No, I love it. That's a great call outs. Again, all these links will be on our show notes. Great information if you want to dig in, if you're curious. What was the other one that I was just thinking about? Again, investing in yourself. The next show, folks, is going to be a good one too, and it kind of dovetails into it because it's employee recognition, right? And I have a lot of opinions about that. Mainly, and as I keep repeating, we have to track our own wins.
Yes,
we cannot depend on someone else to track our wins, because it's only us that needs to track it. It's our own self-interest that we have to track it. I don't know why my thing does that. It gets a little blurry. Anyway, so look out for the next episode. It's about your paycheck. Episode 12, we are talking about employee recognition. Ooh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And this one was a great one. This is really great conversation, and one that we can have again in different ways, because there's so many, and
Mhm.
it's about living wages, right? What,
Yep.
and that I thought about that at the last minute too. I was like, wait a minute, standard of living, a living wage, that's different than minimum wage. So we
Mhm.
can have that conversation too at one point. But right now, folks, what we encourage you to do is understand the laws in your state, minimum wage in your state, what the rules that help your benefit, what are the rules that cover you, that protect you.
Yes.
Do the research, listen to the show, share it, tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yes.
And I think that's it, man. We love you.
Much love.